Good day everyone! Welcome to my PowerPoint presentation. So for this moment, let me introduce myself. So I am Gainsan Roselyn Gallarde, a third-year college, Bachelor of Elementary Education. Now let's continue to my PowerPoint presentation. Let's go. My topic it is Authentic Art Assessment, which belong in Unit 4, Art Appreciation and Assessment. So now, what is Authentic Art Assessment? Authentic Art Assessment provides students a chance to apply what they've learned and allows students to construct a meaning about what they've been taught. So art appreciation should be clear about what you are asking of students. Then your planning should be cover the learning parameters of authentic arts education and be reflected in the assessment you make. Next is be clear about what will be evidence of children in addressing the criteria. Next is decide how will you determine the difference between levels of achievement. Then next is how will you know what the child was aiming to achieve or what thinking process will be used. Next is review your teaching and activity. Sometimes children failure to perform is more of a reflection on the project or your teaching than it is a reflection of their ability to learn and to respond. Next is aim to access the body of work that was created for the project rather than just the final piece. Then also make on balance of judgments by balancing the degree of ambition, ingenuity, and effort against the success of the final result. Next is remember that whether you like the final effect is not relevant. So the purpose of art appreciation is that it helps open up the mindset of the people, or let us say the children, by listening to different perspectives, views, as well as the interpretations of the art. It encourages a thoughtful conversion and the understanding there is more than one approach of everything. Now, let's proceed to what are the benefits of authentic assessment for the students. Benefits are to provide verifiable evidence of a children's knowledge and application of that knowledge. It prepares for the student take on real-life challenge. Learners can apply top level of logical and analytical skills to solve the different real-world situation. Next is to describe it as a form of assessment in which students are asked to perform a real-world task that demonstrates meaningful application of essential knowledge and skills. And then it is often to describe as a meeting point between learning and evaluation. The purpose of the benefits of authentic assessment for the student is it helps students to analyze what they've learned and apply it to their own experience. Now let's proceed the 5 components of authentic assessment. 1 is the assessment task. 2 is the physical context. 3 is the social context. 4 is the assessment result or form. And lastly, the assessment of criteria. Now let's proceed the 27 characteristics of authentic assessment. There are 4 types that was belong in authentic assessment. 1 is structure and logistic. 2 is intellectual desires features. And number 3 is grading and scoring. And lastly, it is the fairness. So now, let's move on what is structures and logistic. Are more appropriately in public. Involve the audience. channel, and etc. Next is do not rely on unrealistic and an arbitrary time in constraint. Then offer known, not secret, questions or tasks. Then are not one shot, more like portfolios or a season games. And then involve some collaborations with others, record and worth retaking. Then lastly is make feedback to the students. Central that school structures and policies are modified to support them. So in these structures and logistics, it offers known, not in a secret, questions or tasks. It is clearly break down the task, questions to be answered. Now let's proceed. The intellectual design features. One are essential, not contrived or arbitrary just to shake out the grade. Two are enabling, pointing the student toward more sophisticated and important use of skills and knowledge. Three are contextualized and complex, not automized into isolated objectives. And number 4, involve the students their own research. Then 5, assess students' habits and repertoire, not miracle or plug in. 6, a representative challenge of a field or subject. Number 7 are engaging and educational. And number 8 is to involve somewhat ambiguous or else structures the task or problems. So in this, intellectual design features are enabling, pointing the student toward more sophisticated and important use of skills and knowledge. So now let's move on the grading and scoring. One is involve the criteria that was assessed in essentials, not merely what is easily scored. Number 2 is are not graded on a curve, but in a reference to legitimate performance standards or benchmark. Number 3 is involve transparent, demystified expectations. And number 4, make self-assessment as part of the assessment. And number 5 is use a multifaceted in analytical trait of scoring system of one holistic or aggregate grade. Lastly is reflect coherent and stable school standard. And this point, it defines at most institutions testing students and assigning them for grades that was provide the basis for such evaluations. Now let's tackle what is fairness. One is identify, which is perhaps unhidden. Then strength, not just reveal deficits. Number 2 is strike a balance between honoring achievements while mindful of fortunate prior knowledge or training that can make assessment invalid. Number 3 is minimize needless, unfair, and demoralizing comparisons of students to one another. Number 4 is to allow appropriate room for student styles and their interest. And number 5 is can be attempted by all students via available scaffolding or prompting as needed. And lastly is have perceived a value to the student in a being assessed. Indeed, fairness is to focus assessment on what really and ensure that assessment is valid indications of a student competence. Overall, the authentic art assessment, the impact of it is that build students their problem solving skills and enhance their ability and knowledge life context. So thank you for watching and God bless.